Hello, and welcome to Bitesized Audio on YouTube. I'm Simon Stanhope, actor, audiobook narrator, and curator of this channel. On the channel, I narrate classic short stories, mostly from the Victorian and Edwardian eras, including vintage ghost stories, detective stories, and other classic tales of mystery and suspense. I put notes in the video description with some background information on the authors and the stories if you'd like to read more, and you'll also find links to playlists and podcast series, as well as some compilation videos if you'd like a longer listen. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment if you'd like to, and thank you for listening. A Railway Panic by Amelia B. Edwards. Read by Simon Stanhope. If this were played upon a stage now, I could condemn it as an improbable fiction. William Shakespeare, Twelfth Night. Do you think I look like a madman? I was falling into a train of pleasant thought, when these words, uttered in a clear, steady voice by my opposite neighbour, fell upon my ear. I started and looked him in the face. He was a small, sallow, intelligent-looking man, muffled from head to foot in a superb Spanish cloak lined with sables. His tone of voice was perfectly composed and matter-of-fact. "Indeed, sir," I replied with some surprise. No such idea occurred to me. "But I am mad, though," he retorted, in the same quiet, confidential way. I was in no humour for levity just then, and, as this was evidently an attempt at practical joking, I made a brief reply to that effect, and looked out of the window. It was an express train, going at the rate of 50 miles an hour. Every moment bore me farther from one who was inexpressibly dear to me, and I felt that I never wished for silence and solitude more than at that moment. The worst of it was that, if this man had made up his mind to talk, I could not help hearing him, and there was no one else for him to address, since we were alone together in the carriage. "Yes," he continued, "I really am mad. I have just escaped, not an hour ago. Shall I tell you how I did it?" I continued to look out at the landscape flying past, and feigned not to hear him. "I was not always mad. Oh dear, no. I do not exactly remember now what it was that drove me to it, but I think it was something connected with Lord Palmerston and the Ace of Clubs. No, yes, oh yes, the Ace of Clubs had certainly something to do with it. However, that is of no consequence now. I had a fine house, and gardens, and horses, and servants, and a wife. Aha, such a pretty, gentle, loving little wife. And I loved her too. Nobody knows how I loved her. Only I wanted to murder her. I loved her so that I wanted to murder her. Wasn't that a rare joke, eh?" I began by this time to feel seriously uncomfortable. It was getting slowly dusk, and my companion's face, composed as it was, wore an odd expression that I did not quite like. "Pray, sir," I said, with affected carelessness, "let us change the subject. If you insist on conversing with me, we may as well choose a more agreeable theme." "Agreeable? Could anything be more agreeable? Well, I will continue. It was a long time before they found it out. I hid it so well. But I knew it well enough, for I used to see faces everywhere, in the furniture, up in the trees, in the bushes, and I knew they could not really be up there, and that I was mad at last. For I had always expected it, aye, ever since I was a boy at school. Somehow they did find it out, though, in spite of all my caution, and I was so cautious, so cautious. They found it out, and one day 2 men came and seized me in my garden, my own garden, and they took me to the madhouse. Oh, it was a dreary place, that madhouse. They shut me up by myself in a bare, cold room, with never a fire to warm me, though it was bitter winter. The windows were barred across with iron, through which the daylight shone as if through the ribs of a skeleton, and every night, would you believe it, every night there came a fearful shape, and sat there, mocking and mowing at me in the moonbeams. That was a hell indeed. One night, when I could bear it no longer, I rushed upon the shape, and fought and struggled with it, and dashed it up against the hard walls. And then the keepers came and tore me from it, and bound me down with cords upon my bed. I heard them say to one another that I had tried to destroy myself, but I knew better. It was the shape I struggled with. It was the shape I tried to kill, only they could not see it. Yet there it still sat, mocking, 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 all the long night through, and they watching in my room, and yet so blind that they could not perceive it. I do not know how long this fury of mine lasted, but I think it must have been a weary time. At length I woke one night from a troubled sleep, and lo, the shape was gone. Ah, then I wept for joy that I was free from it, and I was proud, very proud, for it was gone, and I had conquered it at last. Well, time went on, and I resolved I would escape. How do you suppose I went to work? Why, I pretended to be cured of my madness. Every day the doctor came to see me, but not me alone. I could hear him going to every room, all along the corridor, so I knew when he was coming, long before he got to my door. I must deceive him, I knew, as well as everybody else. Oh, it was a hard task, but I did it. The worst of my madness was that I could not help thinking of the oddest things, and when I talked, my tongue would utter them. However, I schooled myself to talk to him. I practised speaking in a calm, low voice. I studied what I should say. I accustomed myself to rise and bow as he were entering the room. I did not speak much, but what I said was reasonable. I knew it was reasonable. I used to say that I felt better, that I was tired of the confinement, that I hoped shortly to be permitted to return home, and sometimes, that was a clever thought, I asked anxiously after my wife. One day she came to see me. You cannot think what an effort her visit cost me. She looked so pale and timid and pretty that day, and I forced myself to sit down by her, to say to her all the things I had learnt to say to the doctor, to take her hand in mine, and oh, I longed to kill her so the whole time. But I did not. Ah, no, I even kissed her cheek at parting, though I could have yelled aloud for rage as I bent over her. I don't know whether they still suspected me, but I was not released for all my pains. So I determined to be ill. I knew the doctor would find me out if I only pretended. Therefore I starved myself. Ha-ha! Wasn't that fine? This is how I did it. Every day, instead of eating the food they brought me, I put half of it under a loose board in the floor, and half I left, saying that I felt ill and could eat no more. Each day I left more and more, so that it should seem as if my appetite grew constantly worse. And then I got ill, only I did eat just a morsel now and then to keep me from dying. I suffered fearfully, but still I played my part out, and met the doctor's eye with one as quiet as his own. At last he said that I must be removed to another part of the house, and that I required air, or I should never recover. And then did I not laugh, even though I was so ill, to think how I had outwitted him. My new room was pleasant, and looked over a garden. At the end of the garden was a railway. By this railway I made up my mind to escape. Ah, what joy to be flying along behind that engine, flying away, away, and never stopping. I knew well that I must have money to do this. Money. Where and how could I get money? You will see presently. I did not mean to die, you know, so I ate more now, and got better. It is not everyone, let me tell you, that is brave enough to endure starvation as I did. Madmen are no cowards. Well, they used to let me walk in the garden after a while, but with the keeper always beside me. By and by, the doctor began to speak of my release, as of a thing that might be in time, and then, although the end for which I had been working was almost within my grasp, I felt an irresistible impulse compelling me to escape, and not to wait for their tame deliverance. Day and night I waited and watched to do it. The opportunity came soon. One morning, when I was walking with the keeper in the garden, who should come out but the doctor, and what should he do, the senseless fool, but order the keeper to go in, saying that he would walk with me this time? Oh, how my heart leaped and danced within me when he said it! But I kept very still and calm, listening to the man's footsteps on the gravel walk till he was quite gone. I have told you that the railway crossed the bottom of the garden. Well, towards this spot I went, carelessly, as if by accident, you know, and he with me. "This beautiful day will do us all good, Mr. B," he said to me, in his smooth, deceitful voice. He was walking with his hands in his pockets, chinking the gold coins as he went. That gold that I so needed. "I hope that you may soon enjoy the summer on your own estates," he continued. He looked so sleek and self-confident and smiling as he spoke then, that I hated him more than ever. I did not dare to trust my voice in answer, or suffer my eyes to dwell on him. Could he but have seen them for an instant, he would have read my purpose. Just then we reached the extremity of the garden, and stood looking down from the high bank upon the level tram lines below. There was nothing but a low hedge between us and the road. In an instant I turned upon him. "Die!" I shrieked. "Die! I am mad! I am mad! And I have sworn to do it!" I had the strength of 10 in my arms. I closed with him, and dashed his skull against the tree trunk by which we were standing. Oh, it was a glorious vengeance! I beat the smooth smile out of his face, till his own children would not have known him. And then I stamped and danced upon him, and laughed aloud. Suddenly I heard the distant whistle of the train at the village station. There was not a moment to be lost. I tore the watch from his pocket, and I took the purse with the gold, and then, I flung the body over upon the lines, and the train came swiftly on, and crushed him as he lay. Was not that a revenge, and would any but a madman have thought of it? Tell me that! Tell me that! I was so frozen with horror that I sat as if petrified, and could not utter a word. "Now you want to know how I came here," continued the maniac, more quietly, after a momentary pause. "Well, he had this cloak on before the struggle. I wrapped it round me, and went straight through the gardens, and out of the gate, past his very lodge-keeper, and thanks to the high collar, none of them knew me, for we were much of a height, the doctor and I, once out of sight of the house, the dreary, cruel house, I seemed as if I had wings upon my feet. I fled away so fast. The people in the streets of the town stared at me, but what did that matter? I did not care for their staring. I mingled with the crowd at the station, and paid my fare like the rest, with the doctor's money. But there was blood on the gold. I tried to rub it off, but I could not. It came again as fast as I removed it, and I thought they would see it when I put the money down. They did not, though, and here I am, free. Free! Now, answer me. Do you believe that I'm a madman?" He put his face quite close to mine as he said this, and his voice passed from its former level tone to a quick, harsh, exulting calibre that thrilled me with dismay. It was now almost dark, too, and his eyes shone with a cold, unnatural lustre, like the phosphorescent light which is thrown off from fish in a state of putrefaction. It was clear that I must make some reply. Even while I hesitated, he repeated the question, and this time more impatiently. "Well, yes," I said at last, with quivering lips. I think you must be mad." "I'll prove it to you," he whispered, bending still closer to me. "How do you think I'll prove it now?" I shook my head. "I cannot tell," I said faintly. "By murdering you as I murdered him. What, did you think I would let you live, after having told you all about it? Live to betray me and take me back to the— No, no. Madmen are brave. Madmen are cunning. Madmen are strong." I saw that force could avail me nothing here. In great emergencies I always retain my presence of mind. This time it did not fail me, and I was cool in an instant. "Stop," I said calmly, fixing my eyes full upon him. "You have not yet told me all. If you are determined to have my life, it is only fair that you should finish your story first." "That's true," said the madman, with some appearance of curiosity. "What have I left out?" "You have not explained to me about Lord Palmerston and the Ace of Clubs." "I didn't think you'd care to hear that," said he, doubtfully. "I'd rather hear that than all the rest." The lamp now cast a sickly glare through the carriage, and it was so dark that nothing of the country was visible beyond the windows. I knew we must be within a short distance of the London terminus. If I could only divert his attention for a little while longer, I was saved. I determined to keep him in conversation, if possible. "Lord Palmerston began it, you must know," he continued, "and the Ace of Clubs finished it." "Did you know Lord Palmerston?" I asked. He looked at me vacantly, as if he did not comprehend my question. I repeated it. "Know him? I bred and trained him." "Oh, indeed," I said. "Pray proceed." "I bred and trained him on my own estates. I was as fond of him as I could have been of a child. Ay, and fonder too, for if I had had a child, I must have wrung its neck. I feel I must." Here he fixed his eyes on me again, and his fingers worked nervously together, as if longing to be at my throat. "But about Lord Palmerston," said I. His face resumed the old expression, and a gloomy shade seemed to pass over it. "Ah," said he moodily, "that was a dreadful disappointment, wasn't it?" "You have not told me yet," I said. "Did his lordship treat you ill?" "He lost! He lost! I had backed him with half my fortune, and he lost. But, hark you," and he clutched me by the arm as he said it, "he was drugged. I know he was drugged the night before." "Oh, then Lord Palmerston was a horse," I exclaimed. "Of course he was. I told you so at first. You don't pay attention. You're not interested." "Indeed I am, deeply," I replied eagerly. "Pray, go on." We must be in now, before 5 minutes were past. This I was assured of. 5 minutes. Long enough to die. "That is all," replied he, with a suspicious stare. "He lost, and I lost. That's the end of it." "But what has this to do with the ace of clubs?" "The ace of clubs?" said he, fiercely. "What's that to you?" "You promised to tell me, you know, and I should like to hear it," I replied, in a conciliating tone. "You have not told me half yet. Do tell me about the ace of clubs." "I was desperate, you see," said the maniac. "I was desperate after Palmerston knocked up. I had always avoided play till then, but somehow I fell into it when I saw the men at the club playing night after night, winning and losing, winning and losing. I often saw as much gold change hands on a single card as would have covered all my losses on the turf, and then I could not resist it." "So you played too?" "So I played too. For a whole week I won incessantly. Aha! The red gold and the rustling notes that I took home every night for that week. I won more, 3 times more, than I had lost by the race. And then came the turn of the luck." "You lost?" "All that I had gained in one night, but I was not satisfied. I went on again the next day, and lost, and lost, and lost, till everything I had on earth was gone. Nay, all I had on earth was not enough to pay it. But I know how it was. That old man I played with was the fiend. I knew he was the fiend. I saw it in his eyes." He paused. The whistle of the guard rang shrilly through the air, and the pace of the train slackened. He listened. He knew that we were coming in. He turned suddenly towards me. "But what about the ace of clubs?" I urged hurriedly. "Did the old man turn it up?" "Will you betray me if I tell you?" "Never," I said earnestly. "Listen, then. I hid it in my sleeve, for I was desperate. I staked thousands on the chance of cutting it. They all stood round, betting how it would turn up. The old man, curse him, smiled and let me do it. But he had seen me. He had seen me, and when I cut the ace of clubs, he stood up and called me thief." A bright flash of light streamed in at the windows. The train stopped. Thank God, we were arrived. The madman shrank back at the sight of the lamps and the crowd of faces beyond. I leaned over the door, and, with fingers that refused to do their work, felt eagerly for the handle. "What is the matter? What is this?" he said timidly. "Help!" I shrieked, springing out upon the platform among the tide of passengers. "Help! This man is mad!" There were 2 men standing by the barrier, anxiously scrutinizing each face as it passed by. They both turned as I spoke, and one came to me. "Where is he, sir?" said he, respectfully. "We are waiting for him. It's been telegraphed along the line that he's murdered someone down at H, and he's awful dangerous." He had ventured out by this time, and was standing irresolutely beside the carriage door, not knowing where to turn. As for me, I could only point to him, for the power of speech was gone, and, just as they had captured him, I fell senseless to the ground. You've been listening to a bite-sized audiobook, read by me, Simon Stanhope. If you enjoy these stories and would like to help me to keep producing new content, you can find links in the video description to my Patreon page or to buy me a coffee. Another way to support me is through my Bandcamp page, bitesizedaudio.bandcamp.com, where you can hear my narrations of many more classic short stories, as well as purchase and download them to keep. This recording is copyright Bitesized Audio 2025. Thank you for listening.